over my pay grade. But there's no other way that they could drill these. They couldn't get it hot enough, you know. These things, these bases they're massive and they are widespread and they're not linear. They branch off. They have warehouses. They have giant hydroponic farms. They have their own system of water, their own system of oxygen. They don't rely on the surface for any of these things. They have stocked up warehouses full of anything you can imagine that you would need to survive for 200 or 300 years down there. It's so expensive that it's estimated that they have spent $15 trillion plus on this system alone over the years. That is enough money to almost entirely pay off our national debt. And that is simply from this one black project. It's a drop in the budget, a drop in the bucket compared to the total black budget, which has been secretly deducted from our national treasury. Everything that's alien related in any form comes out of that budget, and it's enough to pay off our national debt and make us the richest country in America in one day if we could get it back in the national budget. They don't even know about this stuff. The thing of it is, the military's attitude, even the president doesn't know about all this stuff. The military's theory is, in 4 to 8 years, the president will be gone and he'll never give another order to anybody. But the aliens will still be here, and so will we. And so what they don't want to do is, they don't want to risk some do-gooder president putting a stop to their plans and projects. They don't want Jimmy Carter to say, no more, no more. So they don't tell him. They'll tell him what he needs to know to do his job. You know, they'll tell him that they're the aliens, but they're not going to tell him the details of all these projects. Before you can work at a place like Dulce Base or Area 51 now, you have to sign a paper in which you agree to have your memory chemically erased at the end of your shift every day. So you go to work, you do your job, you come out, psh, they take your memory away, and you don't know what you've done, you don't know who you've worked with, you don't know if you worked beside aliens, you don't know if you worked with chimeras, you don't know if you were involved in alien abductions, you don't know. And they do the same thing for people. I'm going to be talking Sunday morning about the moon and Mars and the colonies we have there and the aliens which inhabit those worlds. And I know at least a half dozen people that have been stationed at Mars base. I've got pictures of the above ground part of it. Dulce Base is a secret. It's as secret as Area 51. It's an underground base on a place called Arcaluda Mesa in New Mexico. And it is 6 to 6.5 levels underground. I say 6 to 6.5 because in between the second and third level, there's kind of a little half level that they use as a prison. It's got prison cells in it where they keep captured aliens. The military doesn't treat most aliens as guests. They treat some of them as prisoners. And that's where they keep them. But the deeper down you go in Dulce Base, the higher the security gets, and the worse the situation gets. When you get down to the fourth level, it's called Nightmare Hall. This is where they do these genetic experiments I was describing. They produce clones, thousands and thousands of clones. They're trying to produce super soldiers. They're trying to produce grays. Gray aliens, the classic ETs with the big wraparound eyes. Those are actually genetically engineered creatures. They're not a naturally occurring type of a being. They are created, and they've been relegated to slave status by the reptilian race which created them. They are entirely telepathic. They operate with like a hive mind. They don't have any emotions. There's no such thing as a friendly gray, okay? If somebody tries to tell you that there's friendly grays, they're full of crap. I've met more grays than I could possibly want to ever remember, and I would exterminate them if I had the power. There's nothing good about them whatsoever. They don't care if you hurt, they don't care if you're uncomfortable, they don't care if you're terrified, they don't care. They're programmed to do a job, they'll do it. They have IQs of about 80, they're not very smart. They are responsible for most of the UFO crashes which take place, because they're also not very good pilots, according to my friend in the Pentagon. The bottom two levels at Dulce Base, humans are not allowed to enter or access in any way. They are occupied by a variety of alien races. One of them is the mantid race, one of them is the reptilian race, the draconians. Some of them are greys. There are many different types of greys, aliens, because the military is aware of at least 160 different alien races right now. They are not all distinct because many of them are very ancient. They've had technology for millions, tens, hundreds of millions of years, some of them. Some of them have been able to get to our planet since before we were in trees, okay? You can't catch up to technology like that by putting on an extra shift at General Dynamics. They sent in some special forces at one time to try to break these people out that are being held in the cages. It's estimated there are up to 30,000 people down there being held in cages. And they sent in, I think, 72 special forces down there, and 71 of them were killed. One of them escaped, but there was just a rout. There was no competition. These bases are guarded with laser weapons and phaser beams. All the stuff in Star Trek, they've got all that stuff and more. And since then, as I understand it, the aliens control that base, and we are there with their permission. They control other bases around this world too, many bases, underground, underwater. I grew up in Yakima, Washington, which is in the center of the state. And out of my backyard, all the time I was growing up, I could see this great big mountain called Mount Adams. Washington is more famous for Mount Rainier because it's a taller mountain, but Mount Adams is bigger. It's more massive. It's bigger in girth. It's the biggest mountain in the Cascade Range, and it rests on an Indian reservation. It's a holy, sacred mountain to the Indian tribe, the Yakima Indians, and because of that, nobody is allowed on to Mount Adams. I lived there first 22 years of my life, I guess, and I never met anyone who'd been on Mount Adams, and it was right there. The closest road that comes to it is 16 miles, except for some old logging roads. Well, as it turns out, Mount Adams is the location of a secret alien base inside the mountain. It's a dormant volcano. And I learned that a few years ago from one of my contacts who had been I saw, in 1984, I saw a confrontation between a very large alien craft and two F-16s. The alien craft was about this far off the ground, and it stayed there for 42 minutes. Well, these F-16s buzzed it. They came from Fairchild over by Spokane, Washington. It took them about 20 minutes to get there. The sighting lasted 42 minutes, but it had to be the Greys. I've never been able to locate a photograph of a craft that looked like the one I saw. I thought it would be easy. The only one I've been able to find came from an Egyptian temple in the olden times, and it had two Greys standing right beside it. It was an exact match. The fighters didn't attack it, but they were mad. They were buzzing it within a few feet of it. One would go up, and the other one was turning around. And then finally, it was hovering right beside a constant care facility for morbidly disabled people. I don't know why. It's the last place I would have expected to ever see one. Lit up like the 4th of July. I couldn't see underneath of it because it was on the top of a hill and there were some trees planted down below. The tops of the trees were blocking the view underneath the craft. So I couldn't see what came out of it or what was taken into it. But I suspect if we did a head count at that hospital before and afterwards, it wouldn't have been the same. So, a couple summers ago, there's a guy that owns a ranch up near Mount Adams, and he has kind of a conference of his own, a mini conference every summer. And somebody was up there a couple summers ago, and they were taking pictures of the mountain. They didn't know it was a base. Most people don't. I never knew it when I was growing up there. I just learned that 3 or 4 years ago. Anyway, he took pictures of the mountains, and he was developing them right there, And the top of the mountain was opening up. You could see it in the pictures. The two rocks were together, then they opened up like this. Then he took a picture of a UFO coming at it. Quite an amazing thing. It's taken from East Eddy Ranch. And I saw that picture within 2 or 3 minutes of the time it was taken. It's the real thing. So, you don't know where these bases are, man. They're everywhere. They're places you would never expect, you know. And Dulce Base is one of the most notorious bases in the world because of the human carnage that takes place there, and because of the fact that we have apparently lost control of it to hostile aliens, reptilians. And reptilians there's nothing good about them. And they are running the show here. No matter what anyone tells you about friendly aliens going to help us advance and transcend to the next level, it's bullshit. We built that base. Reptilians.
We know progress looks different for everyone.
Reptilians were already here. They've been here for thousands, many thousands of years. They live underground. Their bases, as I understand it, can be as deep as 25 miles down in naturally occurring caverns. There are many huge naturally occurring caverns in this world, and they've expanded them. They were running a dress rehearsal, let's say, for Project Bluebeam, which is a project where they intend to fake the second coming of Christ or an alien invasion with hyper-advanced holographic technology. The aliens can apparently do this. I don't know how they do it, but they have technology which is beyond imagining, really. They have the ability to apparently, as I understand it, grow some types of UFOs so that they're actually organic UFOs which are alive, and they're empathically hooked to the pilot. They have spacesuits which can be grown into the body and never again taken off. They become a one integrated unit, as happened at a crash in Brazil. And once they're grown into the body, they're one piece forever. We recovered a live alien from a crash in Brazil in 1998. They tried to get its spacesuit off, but they couldn't get it off. So they ended up trying to cut it off with a torch. They didn't realize that it was grown into his body, and they killed him when they did that. That was after we stole all that stuff from Brazil with special forces and paid him off later with billions of dollars to pretend it didn't happen. And the last I heard, those bodies were stored in a freezer in the basement of the medical complex of the University of the Americas in Panama. That's been a few years, maybe they're gone now. It's not just bases down there. There's roadways, there's warehouses, there's weapon storage, there are ships. They've got canals coming into the tunnels. Did any of you see the picture a couple years ago looked like an undersea base entrance off the coast of Malibu, California? Remember that? That is our base. That is our interest, not an alien base. That belongs to us. And once you go in that entrance, there are underground waterways, mostly natural, which a submarine can navigate all the way to a little lake in Arizona. Yes, all the way under California. There's a Navy base and a little lake in Arizona. Nobody knows why. It's because submarines can cruise right through to that base. Yes. Anyway, they have systematically drained the resources of this nation for decades for these alien projects. I'm going to be speaking about other alien projects on Sunday morning. You should be here if you can. You won't be disappointed. But they've systematically stripped this nation of its wealth. They've used all this drug money. They've stolen all of our gold. They've done it all to build these bases for the benefit of only a few people. These bases are protected, by the way, by 25-ton blast doors, the same type that they used in Cheyenne Mountain. This airport is filled with images and paintings of horrible post-apocalyptic imagery. It's all painted down there, and you can't get there. You can try to get there, but you can't. They'll shoot you if you try. And it's connected to these tunnels. It's considered to be one of the Illuminati headquarter bases when they pull the trigger on Project Bluebeam. And it's ready to go. Bush instituted a complete plan for martial law to be instituted, and Obama buffed it up rather than, you'd think a progressive Democrat would get rid of that? No, no, no. He buffed it up. It's all it takes is a presidential signature. I don't know if you're familiar with the FEMA camps. FEMA camps? Those are as real as anything, and they've been funded and staffed for 20, 30 years now. Nobody's trying to get rid of them. Nobody's mentioning them. They tell you they don't exist. They're prison camps. All of them are by railroads, just like Nazi prison camps were. They can bust you in. They're equipped with guillotines. They've got hundreds of thousands to millions of empty grave liners stacked there, just waiting. The Department of Homeland Security purchased 3.5 billion rounds of hollow point and shotgun slugs, okay? They've fired 3 shots in anger in the last 20 years, okay? They're not police, they're not military. They bought 3.5 billion rounds. Who are they planning on shooting? Us. There's no one else. You could repopulate China with that many rounds, you know? There's no other target but us. It's a big scam, and we are all in danger. By the time we realize it, it'll be too late. We're letting our TVs hypnotize us. I don't know if you realize this, but TVs use a plethora of methods to mind control you. You think you're smart, you think you know, you think that it's not going to affect me, I'm hip, I'm too smart for this. No, 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 no. They've got teams of people with doctorates that are pointing at you. They work all day on fooling you. And they're very good at what they do, and they're very highly paid. They use neurolinguistic programming. They use sigil magic, very powerful force. They use various forms of hypnosis. You ever see all the spinning, flashing lights and spinning wheels and bobbles? Are you ready for the NFL? It's all hypnotic induction. Countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. It's counting you out and counting you into hypnosis repeatedly. Every time they count you in, you get deeper and deeper. You cannot watch television for 5 minutes without becoming hypnotized. You won't realize it, but that's how it is. And then they will start issuing you your orders. They'll tell you who to love, who to trust, who to fear, what to drive, what to wear, what to drink, what to eat, where to shop, everything. And you will do what they tell you because you don't know any better. Try going without your TV for a week and see if you can do it. These tunnels, I started to say, they're protected by 25-ton blast doors, the same type they used to protect Cheyenne Mountain, which was NORAD headquarters, right? They're so well balanced that one person can close these doors and seal them shut. Once they're sealed shut, it takes a direct strike from an atomic bomb to open those doors again. They cannot be, they're immune to any other type of attack. But they also have holographic projections which can make it look just like a mountainside, like a rocks with a little stream flowing down it, and a street that's been mysteriously destroyed a quarter mile away that they can rebuild in 3 hours and start trucking stuff back in there. Anyways, these blast doors, those are logos of the CIA, the NSA, the Department of the Navy, and I can't remember the other one. But it's our secret intelligence agencies which monitor all your phone calls and electronic transmissions. The NSA has all of your voices on tape. They have every phone call you've ever made, every chat message you ever sent. It's all recorded and it's stored forever with the idea of using it against you if they ever need to. But they're all over. I mean, the CIA has bases all across this country underground where they store stuff that they don't want to store above ground. It's just where they store quantum computers, a network of them that are all hooked together. They work hundreds of thousands of times faster than any computer we're familiar with. These blast doors, they use multiple doors. It's not just one door like Cheyenne Mountain had. They use 2 or 3 doors in a row, okay? Every one of them is a 25-ton blast door. You can't get in that door. It's to keep us out. There's no one else trying to come in except us. They are expecting the people that run this world, the people that control this world. These are the pictures of the subways. Some of these maglev subways. The people that control this world, they're not expecting funny little rabbit fur aliens to come marching in to save our asses, okay? They're expecting trouble. These places are set up, it's stored with our money, they're stocked with supplies we've paid for, enough to stay down there for 200 to 300 years at least. At least. They are expecting something very bad that's going to make the surface world uninhabitable to occur. And they're so sure that it's going to happen that they've stripped the resources of this country to build this underground sanctuary just for themselves. We're not going to be allowed in. The elite are going to be in there, the people that control the military, that control the intelligence agencies, head of the Illuminati, and the people that they need to serve their needs. They've got hyper modern medical facilities. They've got cities with malls in them, completely empty. They've got people already living there in some of these places. They've got everything that you can imagine. They've got warehouses full of food. They've got their ability to produce their own food. They've got warehouses full of commodities, weapons. They've got ships. They've got planes. They've got, you name it. You'll never get in these places. And they are expecting to lock us out and leave us here to die. That's the plan. The maximum capacity of all these cities, if they were all fully inhabited, is less than 1 million people. Okay? Now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. I probably wouldn't have believed this myself if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, experienced it with my own self. The military and the aliens both have, there's Phil Schneider, both have access to time travel technology. It's not something that you would, there's some of the blast doors. See how there's 2 of them in a row? They can be sealed off. They can seal off every section of this place. If something goes wrong in one section, they can shut the blast doors. It has its own independent air and water system. They can seal it off from the rest so that the infection won't spread or the attack can't get past them or whatever happens, okay? The people that run this thing, they do have the ability to distort and travel through time. I can tell you that because they've used the technology on me at least 4 times that I'm aware of during abduction events, against my will. And every time it was for a different reason, and every time it was for a reason that would have never occurred to me. One example is, when I was abducted by the Greys once, this is the only memory I have of being returned home. I was floated above my bed by 2 of these Greys. I was floating in the air, and I could see my future body was out of phase with me, sleeping in the bed still. It's like a few seconds ahead of me. I could see it, and they floated me over top of this, and they lowered me down into it, the same place at the same time. They say it's impossible. They did it. And then a few seconds passed, I merged together with this body. I woke up like I was from a sleep. The room was empty. No time had passed on the clock since I was taken. It's just like you were never gone. Someone that's sleeping beside you would think you were never taken at all. Well, they can abduct your astral body too, and they've done that many times to many people. But this is the way that they return your physical body. This is one of the ways they use time distortion technology to make it happen without any time elapsing on the clock. Right, well, yeah, that's probably right. I don't have the details on that, but I wouldn't doubt that that's correct. Time doesn't work the same way for them as it does for us, because that's how advanced these things are. And the people that run the show here, I don't know if you know this, but the people that run the show are Luciferian. Did you know that? Yeah. If you ever want to, have you ever looked at Yes We Can backwards? The Obama's first campaign slogan. Look it up on YouTube sometime. When you run Yes We Can, yes we can. You run it backwards, he's saying, thank you, Satan, every time. If you don't believe it, record yourself saying yes we can and play it backwards, and you'll be saying it yourself. Anyway, these people do have access to what's going on in the future. And they are firmly convinced that this world is going to become uninhabitable, either through an overt alien takeover, which is, we're being taken over even as we sit here, we just don't know it, in a variety of ways. This planet is being geoengineered to suit the specifications of reptilians. It's getting hotter, drier, more radioactive, more methane in the atmosphere. It's all being geoengineered intentionally and has been for decades. We can't stop it. It could be a plague, it could be a nuclear war. There's many reasons that the surface could become uninhabitable. But when that happens, they're going to retreat underground, they're going to slam those doors, and you can't get in. Even if you can find the entrance, you won't be able to get in there. I mean, it could be any of these things. You know, there's a lot of things that could make the surface world uninhabitable. The Pacific Ring could all go off at once. All the volcanoes could all go off at once. I don't know if you remember Mount St. Helens, but I was directly in the path of Mount St. Helens where I lived. And let me give you a tip. Don't be in the path of a damn volcano. leave natural disasters far away if you can. Because where I was living, the streetlights came on at 10 o'clock in the morning, it became pitch black, and they stayed on for 3 days and 3 nights while it rained ashes and rocks. In the end, we had about this much sand and ash rain on everything. Roofs were caving in. It was terrible. It was 1981. 1980, excuse me, 1980. I was living in Yakima. The whole city was shut down. And we were 150 miles or more from the volcano. You know, that cloud was, they say it was like 1,000 atomic bombs at once when that thing blew up. And the cloud made them shut down schools clear in Chicago when it traveled across the nation. It's a terrible thing, but they're set to stay underground, 7 to 9 miles underground, with no access. They don't need any supplies. They don't need nothing from us, except our money to build this stuff, you know. And we can't get in there. And they anticipate leaving us up here to die. And that's the mindset that the Illuminati has. They don't care about us. They're psychopaths. They're sociopaths. They only care about increasing their own already unfathomable wealth and power. You know, they already own all the corporations, they own all the good land, they own all the stocks, they own everything, and it's not quite enough. They own the Federal Reserve banks. That's the Rockefellers, who are controlled by the Rothschilds, who are the head of the Illuminati in this world. And they just print money, trillions of dollars. It appears out of thin air. All they have to do is change a line on a banking sheet, and all of a sudden they have another $1 trillion, and our currency's been devalued, but they have $1 trillion. Arizona's full of bases, man. And their Yucca Mountain is a base. The Tall Whites have a base outside of Roswell a little ways. Roswell, the Air Force Base is the base that's in control of all of our strategic nuclear weapons that are on airplanes. And they're also the unit that was tasked to go clean up all the evidence at Roswell after the crash. The crash was real. They'll never admit that because they found a vat full of human blood and dismembered human body parts on board the craft. I started to tell you about the Greys and the reptilians. I hate to even tell you this part, but the Greys don't have a digestive system like we do. At the back of their mouth is just a skin flap. They don't have a throat. They don't have a stomach or anything like that. So they have to intake and excrete nutrition through the pores of their skin, okay? It's the only thing they have. Very likely is there are many underwater UFO bases, and some of them we constructed with them. And some of them are jointly occupied, but many of them are alien only. And the spacecraft, they use a propulsion system which actually creates a vacuum in front of the craft when they're in the atmosphere. And when they're in the water, it does the same thing, meaning that they can move through the water at the same speed they can move through the air. And some of those craft are enormous. Some of them are bigger than aircraft carriers. It's very possible that some of them are as big as planets. You know, people think that disclosure is going to happen. No. Don't kid yourself. These people that run in these disclosure movements, they're fools. They know as well as anybody disclosure is not going to happen, because I could tell you 40 reasons off the top of my head, and any one of them is enough to stop disclosure from happening. There will be no other choice when disclosure happens. And when it does, they'll give you as little truth as possible, because it's all downside as far as the government's concerned. They're in it up to their necks. The first thing they have to say is, hey, guess what? We don't control our own airspace, and we never have. Guess what? We can't defend you. We can't stop them from eating you or abducting you. We're sorry. By the way, they gave us the cures to every disease known to man, but we're not sharing with you, because that's what they'll tell you. They don't share any of that stuff with us, okay? And the government knows that we would bring down our own government in order to stop it from doing what it's doing if we knew the truth.